I'd like to introduce a new term I came up with. It's locked pit, which stands for laws, oath, consent, disability, purse, impeachment terms. Okay, now this particular term, again, so laws, oath, consent, disability, purse, impeachment terms, is what I find in the Constitution are the only ways that the people or the government can check the powers of the president. Okay, so there have to be checks on each branch. That's part of the way the system was designed. But where a check isn't, let's not say that it's not there. Say that it's there, and where a check is, let's not say that it doesn't exist. Okay, let's be honest about the whole thing. Honesty is going to be our best policy as we read the Constitution. So laws. So first off, where Congress is granted a power, such as the power to set weights and measures, or this or that, the policies for military personnel conduct, those laws, then if they actually exercise a power granted to Congress, become part of the president's take care clause. They are a promise on the part of the president. They are not an optional power. We have to remember in the Constitution, there are promises guaranteed, there are powers that are allowed and powers that are prohibited. The president has more promises guaranteed than he has powers, which promises guaranteed, I would say, are more important than powers. Okay, but Congress has powers. Okay, so where they exercise their legislative authority over a power enumerated to them, that falls under the President's Take Care Clause, and so it is a means of compelling the President. Okay, again, my term is locked pit, laws, oath, consent, disability, purse, impeachment terms. So now oath. This is one that people would like to pretend doesn't exist. Some people would like to. Article 6, Clause 3 makes any government official take an oath to the Constitution itself. Not to the President, not to the Supreme Court, not to Congress and the laws they think they've passed. Okay? But straight up an oath to the Constitution. And I do think that the most honest analysis of the whole thing, you would look at the Kentucky Resolutions by Thomas Jefferson. Even if you don't like them, even if you don't like the conclusion, it is the most honest thing. So any government official who then finds himself being ordered to do something that straight up the Constitution does not allow, does not promise, and perhaps even prohibits, they would be in violation of their Article 6, Clause 3 oath to follow such order. And so the laws of nature and of nature's God tells me that if they've taken that oath, no one has to tell them they have the power to nullify unconstitutional requirements. That is the most obvious thing in the world. And then consent, regarding consent, again, we have locked pit, LOCDPIT. Consent is from the Senate regarding the president. He has the power to propose treaties and the power to nominate people to different positions within the federal government. However, it's not a power that's unchecked, just the same as legislative power is not unchecked by the president's veto power. The president is not unchecked in his treaty power, but instead it has to gain the approval of one house of our legislature, our Congress, which is the Senate, and it has to be a 2/3 approval. So that is the consent aspect. And then disability, we have the 25th Amendment. The 25th Amendment basically says that, I'm not an expert on it, but basically I think it's the vice president that can identify that the president is no longer able to fulfill their duties as president. They've got too many mental disabilities, health problems. They're no longer functional, and then they get removed because of disability. Purse. Say, for example, the president is following his oath of office, keeping a promise guaranteed to the best of his understanding, which no bill from Congress can tell him what his promises guaranteed are, what his plain duties are. His plain duties are to the Constitution, the laws, and the treaties, as long as they're in pursuance of the Constitution. But of course, the Constitution itself is in pursuance of itself. So, most obvious thing in the world. However, the power of the purse, if Congress feels that the president is out of hand in how he is carrying out this or that thing that's funded by Congress in the executive branch, they have the power to withhold further funding. And so that's the purse. Then there's impeachment. If they find that the president claims that he is keeping the promises guaranteed in the Constitution, when in actuality he is violating the Constitution left and right, that's a high crime, not just a misdemeanor. And which misdemeanor had a different meaning back in the old days anyhow. So they can impeach him and remove him from office, or if they find that he's doing anything else wrong, right? Then the last one, terms. The president's power is kept in check. Nowadays, we also have the, what is it, the 18th Amendment? I can't remember, you guys. The one that limits the president to only having 2 terms. 2 or 4-year terms. But no matter what, even in the old days, every 4 years the president had to get reelected. Okay, and so he had to come before the people and regain their approval. And if he didn't at the end of those 4 years, somebody else took his place. These are the only constitutional means that are actually existent for the president's power to be kept in check. For the president's promises guaranteed, because the overwhelming majority of what he does is actually promises guaranteed. It is not optional powers such as Article 1, Section 8, but rather it is promises guaranteed, which to me are even more important than the optional powers. And so, no, Congress cannot attempt to take from him his obligation to the promises guaranteed in the Constitution. They cannot write a bill that redefines his powers and his jurisdictions. That is something that exists in the Constitution in Article 3, Section 2, Clause 2, where Congress can limit the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. But they cannot, and that's explicitly only the Supreme Court, if I'm not mistaken. It's not the entire judicial branch at all in the first place. And Congress has the explicit powers to create lower courts as needed. So they do not have such power whatsoever over the executive branch. That is not one of the checks the Constitution granted to them. And so they may try to pass a law that says the president has to end a war after 60 days, etc. But if he's exercising a promise guaranteed in the Constitution, in truth, they have no power over that whatsoever, except for what I just mentioned. And had they passed the War Powers Resolution saying, okay, after 60 days of the president going to war without a declaration of war, we will defund all further extra parts of the military and bring it back to only its most basic service, that would have been one thing. That would have been a right they actually had. That is a power they have, but they do not have the power to define the president's powers. They can only pass laws that exercise powers that are actually granted to them, and if it is a legitimate power granted to them and passed through the proper procedure, then the president, by his take care duty, has to see that that law is faithfully executed. So there you have it. Locked pit, LOCDPIT, laws, oath, consent, disability, purse, impeachment, and terms. That's what I've got. It's the best I can find. Everything else is theory. Even if a founder said it, if it's not actually in the Constitution, it's just not there. So thanks for listening, you guys. See you.